My name's Amber. I'm about to expose myself in front of the world here on YouTube, and this is scary, this is terrifying, and I don't want to, but I have to, and I'm just gonna say it. And I've never told my family, I've never told my friends, I haven't told anybody about this, and I need to say it out loud because I want to make a change. And it's the only way I'm going to hold myself accountable. So I'm just going to say it. My name's Amber, and I'm f***ing lazy. Okay, for real, let's get started. Let's talk about laziness, and let's talk about how we can use it to our advantage, because guess what? It's not the bad thing that you maybe think it is. Let's get into it. Okay, but seriously, I'm going to talk about how you can use laziness to your advantage. The reality is, pretty much everyone feels lazy or struggles with procrastination from time to time. But there's a little known trick to how you can actually leverage your laziness and finally stop procrastinating. It's called the 20-second rule. I first learned about this trick in a book called The Happiness Advantage by Shawn Achor. If you've heard about the 20-second rule before, hear me out though, because there's a lot more to it than that I'm going to get into in a little bit. So one thing that makes starting a new habit or tackling a task difficult to jump into is how lazy our minds can actually be. So if you make a positive habit more accessible, specifically, set yourself up so it takes less than 20 seconds to get started, you increase your odds to actually jump in and get it done. In the book, Achor talks about how he wanted to practice playing guitar, but each and every night after work, he would just come home, sit on the couch, and watch TV. So even though he thought that playing the guitar is something he really enjoyed and he really wanted to do, he just kept putting it off night after night. So what he did was he took his guitar out from the closet and he actually set it up in his living room right next to the sofa. Then the next day, he came home, and because it was sitting there right beside him, staring right at him, he picked it up and started playing. He ended up practicing playing the guitar for 21 days straight, just simply due to changing where it was placed. Having his guitar placed in the center of the living room bypasses that innate laziness that kicks in when we're trying to do something out of our typical habitual routine. And it also served as a visual cue to remind him of something that he really wants to prioritize. You can actually take this a step further by making the habit that you're trying to break less accessible. So in this instance, take the batteries out of the remote control, place them in a closet in another room, and that's actually going to go a long way to deterring you from simply coming home and flicking on the TV, especially with your guitar sitting right there in front of you. The effort required to get up and retrieve those batteries out of storage is enough to make your mind decide to instead play the guitar. It's simply the easier option because remember, our minds are naturally very lazy. So I use this habit in my own life with stretching. Stretching every day is something that I wanted to do for the longest time, and seriously months and probably even years went by and I had yet to start. So what I did was I took my yoga mat out and I just literally unrolled it in the middle of the living room floor and kept it there. And later that day, I did walk by, sit on the mat and stretch. And guess what? The same thing happened the next day, and the same thing happened the day after that. Simply seeing the yoga mat on the floor was a visual reminder that not only was it a visual reminder actually, but it made me realize that, hey, it's really not that hard. The mat is right there. Just stand on the mat and do some stretches, right? I don't have to go to the closet, get the mat out, unroll it, and when I'm done, I don't have to roll it back up and put it away. And I know that doesn't sound that difficult, but our minds are so lazy that even these little small setups that take, longer than 20 seconds just completely put us off doing it at all. So what this taught me was that when we want to do something, we need to leave as little excuse for procrastination as possible. Anything you can do to prep in advance, you should. The more setup you get done ahead of time, the better. If you want to drink more water, keep a large water bottle on your desk beside you rather than having to constantly get up and refill a smaller glass. I actually have this Yeti thermos that I fill up once in the morning, and then by halfway through the day, I have it all drank, and then I fill it up again for the rest of the day. It's 32 ounces. So if I just fill this up midday and drink 2 of these a day, that's all my water for the day. Before I had this, and I would rely on just literally reminding myself to go get a glass and fill it with water, I drink so much less water because it's It's a visual cue, but it's also less work. It's already filled. It's sitting right there on my desk. I'm going to drink it. You want to start exercising every morning? Try sleeping in your exercise clothes so when you wake up, you're already ready and good to go. I even use this with journaling. I used to keep my journal put away on this bookcase right behind me, and I figured, when I'm ready to journal, I'll just take it out. But months went by, not a single entry. Now I keep my journal on my desk with a pen. It's just sitting right here. So whenever I sit at my desk or walk by and I see my journal sitting out, I remind myself to journal. And it really, if you watch my last video, you would see that the style of journaling I do really affects the trajectory of my entire day and my entire life. So it actually is life-changing, the fact that I keep this journal sitting on my desk, because I'm now using it. Yeah, it's pretty crazy if you think about it. A book I read recently by Pema Chodron talks about habit grooves. Scientists discovered that when you do the habitual thing, when your mind is on autopilot and you go about life just, doing what you always do, these habits are registered in the brain as deep grooves. They get deeper every time you do the same thing. This is why starting new habits is so difficult at first. In the example I talked about, he had deep habit grooves in his brain to just come home from work and watch TV, sit on the couch, turn on the TV. But the beautiful thing is, every time he instead elected to play the guitar, he was forming new habit grooves. And slowly over time, these new habit grooves get deeper and deeper. And then eventually, with enough repetition, this new behavior, playing the guitar in this case, is easier and easier to do. You no longer have to keep the guitar or the yoga mat out in the middle of your room to get yourself to do it. It will become normalized in your brain and a new habit will form. Oftentimes there's this dissonance between who we are and who we want to be. And much of this dissonance is due to not having the motivation to change our behavior and take on these new behaviors that are in line with our values. You might wish to be the type of person that eats healthy, practices yoga every day, goes on an hour walk with your dog, or maybe you're an expert, you want to be an expert photographer. But each night you come home from work and you don't actually do any of it. Then months, years go by and you've gotten nowhere closer to being the person you want to be. Ever notice that in the evenings when you get hungry, you end up grabbing junk food to snack on? That's because it's all pre-packaged and easy to consume. There's literally no energy required to pouring yourself a bowl of Cheetos. So instead, what you should do is you should prep some healthy snacks for yourself. So next time you get hungry, you can just as easily grab a healthy snack that requires zero prep work. If you have to put together a healthy snack versus simply opening the cupboard and grabbing some Cheetos out of it, the chips are going to win every time. You need to lower the activation energy required to eat more healthy. So I want to challenge you to try this. Make what you want to do more accessible. It should take you less than 20 seconds to go from not doing the thing to doing it. And on top of that, make your already formed habits that you'd like to break less accessible. Make it harder to simply wake up and do the same thing each and every day. Also, let me know in the comments what new habits you want to form or any old habits you want to break. Then try this where you make them either more or less accessible. Come back and tell me how it goes. I'm curious to see if there are any themes on any habits that people want to change, because if there is, then I'll definitely make a video on that specifically. Thank you guys so much for watching, and before you leave, please hit that subscribe button if you're interested in seeing more content around self-development. Subscribing is an easy way to passively get fed content that will help you on your journey toward personal growth. See you on the next one. Bye!